Okay, we're going to start, and if people are still getting ice cream outside, they'll just have to multitask. I'd like to welcome everybody to the 25th anniversary of the Takoma Park Nuclear Free Zone Ordinance and Nuclear Free Zone existence. Hurry in, hurry in. Come on, Jay, sit down. And I'd just like to share a minute or two on my sense on what part the nuclear free zone plays in Takoma Park. Whenever I meet somebody who says, "Oh, Takoma Park, you're from Takoma Park," they say, "Aren't you nuclear free?" That's the thing that people know. But what they don't know is what that really means. They think, oh, it's just, you're nuclear free and isn't that nice or isn't that weird? And I say, but it really has teeth. It's really a purchasing ordinance. It's a purchasing restriction for the city government to not be able to purchase any goods or services from anybody who's in any way connected with production of nuclear weapons. And it's been that way all along, and it has, I know, over the course of the years, resulted in some interesting discussions. And in my experience, that has always resulted in a better purchase, a better understanding of the importance of being nuclear free. I know that the lights in this room were procured under that ordinance, that we couldn't buy the standard kinds of fluorescent bulbs as we went to a more energy efficient bulb. And it took, I think in that case, a process of about a year to find something that would fit under the nuclear free ordinance and that we could purchase. But we did, and it ended up being a better purchase, a cheaper purchase. So the involvement of the committee in purchasing decisions like that, and the involvement of the committee in education about issues revolving around nuclear weapons and nuclear energy has been very important for the city. And I'd just like to recognize that that has been one of the things that we're best known for, and I think it's improved us as a community. And now I'd like to introduce the film that we're going to see. Got Bomb is a student-made film from Drexel University filmmakers Bunker Seifert, Heather Craig, and Corey Jacobs. It was kindly loaned to us tonight by the Project for Nuclear Awareness. As you'll see, Got Bomb is a combination of satirical drama, documentary interviews, and some facts that really give you pause for thought. Here are a few examples. 22 million children could get a free school lunch with the money spent on nuclear weapons each year. 1.2 million students could get a free 4-year college education with the money spent yearly on the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. 200 million prescriptions could be given to seniors with the money subsidizing oil companies. 186,000 new jobs would be created if we replace oil with green energy. The U.S. government wants to spend $150 billion to replace their current nuclear weapons. That's $1,300 out of every taxpayer's pockets. Can we afford that? Should we? Now, Got Bomb.
Hey, lady! Don't test me, lady. I totally know how to use this thing. Think.
Oh, yeah?
I know you don't know.
Yeah. Mine's set. It's set and ready to go, Sonny. Yeah, I've got my finger on the button.
I am ready to go. No, no. Oh, yeah? No, don't even try.
You want me to push you? Put that down right now. You put that down right now.
I'm not pushing. You put it down.
Hi, my name is Dylan, and I'm here in Philadelphia, and we're talking about nuclear awareness today. Let's see what people have to say. What do you think about nuclear weapons? You didn't hear it, but he just said nuclear weapons are wrong, wrong, wrong. Thanks. Excuse me, sir. We're doing a study on nuclear war. What do you think about nuclear weapons? He has nothing to say, and that's okay. What do you think about nuclear weapons? Hey, what do you think about nuclear weapons?
I think they need to get rid of all that.
Well said. Well said. Hey, do you know that the world's leading experts say that we can end nuclear weapons?
Good luck with that, man.
Good luck with that, man. That the world's leading experts say we can eliminate nuclear weapons?
No, I did not know that.
Negative.
No, I thought they just used nuclear weapons to end war.
Good luck with that. Did you know that the world's leading experts say we can eliminate nuclear war?
Say that again, man.
West Philly, here we go. Did you know that the world's leading experts say we can eliminate nuclear weapons?
Yeah, that's cool. We need to eliminate nuclear weapons. You know what I'm saying? Who wants to get nuked? I do.
Hey, thanks, man. Excuse me, purple shirt. What would you say if I said that students, much like yourselves, could get free school lunch every year if we stopped making nukes?
That'd be awesome.
That'd be great. How many American kids could get a year of free school lunches with the money spent on nukes each year?
For school lunches, okay. Oh, probably millions.
I don't know. I'm sure a lot.
I don't know.
A lot.
I have no idea. Do you know exactly?
22 million each year. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we're spending too much money on it.
Wow. I didn't know that. I think it'd be probably a good way to spend our money. Maybe on books or something, though, too. You know?
Plus, nuclear warheads is like, what are they for? You know, it's like, you know, you creating something to destroy something that you never created.
What do you think about lunch?
Do you like lunch? Yeah. Yeah.
You heard it from Philadelphia. Ice cream for lunch, books, instead of nuclear war. Thank you.
You know how to use it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, you picked up the wrong old lady. You're acting right. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Ready to go?
What do you think about nuclear weapons? What do you think about nuclear weapons? Nothing? No? I know one of you thinks something about nuclear weapons. How many college students could get a free 4-year college degree with the money we're spending yearly on the Iraq and Afghanistan war?
Probably like all of Philadelphia.
A line.
More than I can count.
4,200.
Like 20, I guess? I don't know.
Probably hundreds of thousands. At least. At least.
Smart answer. No, definitely. There's actually 1.2 million students each year to get a 4-year education.
That's not right, dude. That's wrong.
Well, we should do that.
I wish I had 60,000 of that right now.
That's amazing.
Well, I think this is like a waste of money. This is our future, you know?
How many free prescriptions could be given to seniors with the money spent subsidizing oil companies annually?
Many.
I'd have to say 400,000.
208.3 million prescriptions every year.
That's great.
Instead of subsidizing oil companies. What do you think about that?
I think it's horrible. It's horrible.
And that's not right. The oil companies are making out like a fat rat.
Right. And you wonder why our elders go to Canada.
We should be spending our money somewhere else.
I can push it too. I'm so close. I know. I'm ready to go.
Are you ready to die, lady?
If we switch from oil to green energy, how many jobs would be created by 2020?
I have no idea. But we'll have more.
Not much.
I didn't say 2 million.
That's pretty close. There's actually at least 185,000 new jobs by 2020.
That's good. That's what we need to do.
We should switch.
We should switch, yeah.
All right, there we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. How's it going, guys? All right, so we're here talking today about nuclear awareness, all right?
Oh, is that?
Hey, no. It's cool. It's cool. I just got a quick question for you, okay? All right, I'm going to tell you something. The U.S. government, they want to spend $150 billion to replace the current nuclear weapons. That's $1,300 out of every taxpayer's pocket. What would you do with $1,300?
With $1,300 right now, I go shopping.
I would go to Disney World. Go on vacation. Would you go out and buy ice cream?
I don't eat ice cream.
Would you go out and buy a new hat?
No, I live a plain and simple life. I give to the poor, yes.
I would get my medicine, pretty much, because we're going to spend what? Upgrade?
They want to spend $150 billion upgrading the weapons that they have now.
Why are we going to Iran and telling them to stop when we're upgrading ours?
I'm sure we could use the funding somewhere else on some things that are more necessary, you know, than advancing our weaponry, which is already pretty much advanced.
Nuclear bomb dropped on Rittenhouse Square today. How many people would be affected?
The whole city.
Hundreds of thousands.
And the environment. Anywhere from here up until, like, Vermont.
More than people in Rittenhouse Square.
You're right. There's actually at least 1.5 million people in Philadelphia alone, plus the effects of radiation, which would overflow into suburbia New Jersey and the surrounding areas. What do you think about that?
I think it's terrible, but it'll be quick. That's horrible.
Devastating. Yeah, devastating. We don't need that. All we need is life. You know what I'm saying? That's all we need is life. That's all.
You heard it from Philadelphia. All we need is life. Thanks, gentlemen.
I'm gonna take all you guys. I'm gonna do it. Calm down, Hudson. Watch it. I'm gonna do it. Yeah. You gotta be thinking with the ankle.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jay Levy. I'm chair of the Nuclear Free Zone Committee in Takoma Park. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and I'd like to recognize the members of our city council who are here, and the mayor. You've already met the mayor, Bruce Williams, in the back. And in alphabetical order, Terry Siemens, Councilman Siemens, and we have Councilman Snipper, and we have Councilman Wright, and we have two former council members, Hank Prensky, Hank's there, and Sharon Levy, my wife. Hi. Basically, we have two big things to celebrate this season. One is the 125th anniversary of Takoma Park being on the map when it was first incorporated and made a separate part of the area. And the second is the 25th anniversary of our nuclear-free zone, which came about due to the great emphasis on nuclear disarmament. In 1983, on a Sunday, one day before this council passed the strongest nuclear-free zone legislation in the country, the very day before, ABC television ran a 2-hour special called The Day After, and it was a vivid portrayal of what would happen if the United States was ever to be under nuclear attack. And this scared a lot of people, and the next day, Takoma Park came through with the day after, and we passed our resolution, our law. And it's been a worthwhile effort. I mean, we have nuclear-free mulch, although the city never gave us a percentage of that. But and at one point, the city would put a cancellation stamp on all its official mail, nuclear-free zone. But basically, the law put us on the map internationally. I say internationally because I was lucky enough to be able to go to Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1999 and present Takoma Park's official T-shirt to the mayor of Hiroshima and to give a little presentation which startled a lot of people from around the world that Takoma Park actually had a law which meant something. I made a similar presentation at Vancouver 2 years ago at the World Peace Conference. Again, I said that we had the strongest law. And somebody stood up and said, "No, you don't." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I'm a councilman from Olympia, Washington." That's a good trivia question. Olympia is the capital of the state of Washington. And he told me, you don't have the strongest law because we have your law because we copied it. Well, over the years, we've gotten requests. I just got one a couple of weeks ago from a small town in Northern California. They were debating whether or not to implement a similar law, and we've had requests from Arcata, California, and several other places to either replicate our law or give them advice. We're even famous at the UN because 4 years ago, I gave a presentation at the World Conference of Mayors for Peace. This was held in New York at the UN in relation to the disarmament, 10-year review of nuclear disarmament. So I think that Takoma Park has been well served by our nuclear-free zone. And what's in the future? I mean, is it still relevant? It's 25 years old. Let's put it this way. There are now more than 20,000 active nuclear warheads around the world. The huge majority of them are under the control of the U.S. and Russia. But there are lots of other players involved. And our president has asked for a policy of updating and making more reliable nuclear weapons, whatever that means. So I think we're still relevant. And the city council just recently, in the last year and a half, asked us, the Nuclear Free Zone Committee, to advise the city on problems relating to nuclear waste, high-level nuclear waste, which would come through this city right down the railroad tracks. And it's not coming yet, but I think the council realized that there are other problems that we could address, and so we're carefully monitoring the situation. There would be a shipments of nuclear waste if the nuclear repository was opened up, nuclear waste repository was opened up in 80 miles west of Las Vegas. That probably won't happen for a while, but you'll hear more about that later. And at this point, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Tom Colina.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Tom Colina. I'm Executive Director of 2020 Vision. We're a national group focused on nuclear weapons issues as well as energy and climate change. And it's a pleasure to be here. I've been a happy resident of Takoma Park for the last 10 years, and I've always been proud of the nuclear-free zone status of our fair town, and I've really enjoyed that. And I think and so I congratulate all of us for the fact we've made it through 25 years of that, and to all of those who were here 25 years ago when it was passed. It was a really great achievement. It really is something that did put Takoma Park on the map, and it's an exciting thing to have, an exciting place to be. I think my job, as far as I understand what it is to, and thank you, Linda, for inviting me, is just to talk about sort of where we are in efforts to reduce nuclear weapons in the United States and globally from a policy perspective. I've been working in the effort to reduce nuclear arsenals, to get rid of nuclear arsenals for the past 20 years, pretty much ever since college. And I came to Washington and been doing that ever since. And if you, it's a bit like a soap opera, you know, where you're watching General Hospital or something, and then you don't watch it for a few years, and you come back to watch it again, and sort of everything is the same. Well, unfortunately, that's kind of the situation we have with arms reductions, is that at the end of the Clinton administration, there was a fair amount of enthusiasm, a fair amount of momentum, and then President Bush, the younger, came to town, and you pretty much could have gone to sleep for the last 8 years, and you'd be waking up about now, and things have pretty much been where they were. The good news, of course, is that we have a new president coming to town, January 20th. And so the question now is how are things going to change with under President Barack Obama? And I think the answer is too soon to tell, but certainly we can point to a couple of things that we would hope to happen. First and foremost, it's very refreshing to have a president who at least expresses the vision and desire to have a world free of nuclear weapons. Certainly not in my lifetime has any president expressed that. And that has clearly been expressed by Obama. And were he to pursue that aggressively, there are a number of steps he would take. One is he would resume U.S.-Russian discussions to reduce arsenals. Those pretty much stopped under the Bush years. he would pursue efforts to ratify the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, which the Clinton administration negotiated and passed in Geneva. The U.S. signed it. Back here in the United States, the treaty was rejected by the U.S. Senate in 1999, and nothing has happened on that since. So bringing that treaty back and having it ratified in the Senate will probably be the most important symbolic measure President Obama could take to show that we're sending a different signal to the rest of the world on nuclear weapons. Because clearly, among many of other Bush agenda items that made the United States look bad abroad, the nuclear reductions and non-proliferation agenda is a pretty glaring example of how the United States has stuck its nose out at others and refused to play nice. And then certainly there are other things too of controlling the spread of nuclear materials to other countries and to terrorists and the like. And so there's a whole agenda that we're hoping will get rejuvenated now with Obama. I think the big question to ask is, will he pursue that agenda? Because, of course, he's got a lot of things to do. And I think we have to be realistic about what he can tackle all at once. I mean, clearly he's got the economy to deal with. He's got health care. He's got energy issues, which I spend a lot of my time working on as well. Climate change, oil dependence, a whole host of issues. And when you stack up all those issues against nuclear weapons, I certainly don't see nuclear weapons as the most important issue that he perceives he has to deal with. So what do we do about that? I think part we have to give him some space and let him, pursue things as he needs to. But we also need to show him that this is an issue that he needs to worry about and address. And so that comes from all of us and through things like the nuclear free zone law and other similar things around the country to make it clear to the President that this is not an issue he can ignore. So that's really my take-home message here tonight, is if we want President Obama to take this issue on, we're going to have to make it inescapable for him to do that. It's not going to happen on its own. It's going to happen because we all make it happen. And with that, I think I'll end. And Linda, you're up.
Thanks, Tom. And thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Linda Gunter. I'm a member of the Nuclear Free Takoma Park Committee. And I'm also with Beyond Nuclear, which speaks for itself. It's a non-profit organization that's based here in Takoma Park. There are a number of organizations, either in Takoma Park or in Silver Spring, who you'll see outside tabling, and I encourage you to pick up literature afterwards. We've also probably got a little bit of time on hand at the end, so although we haven't opened this up yet for discussion, we're happy to take questions or to chat informally afterwards if you're interested in sticking around. I'm obviously a resident of Takoma Park. That's a prerequisite for being on the committee. And one of the things I really like about Takoma Park is that it's so family-oriented. I have a family who are here tonight, and it's very kid-friendly. I actually always sort of joke that, there are more high chairs than regular chairs at Mark's Kitchen, which isn't strictly true, but you know what I mean. And our kids are really, classic Takoma Park kids. I mean, they get it about things like climate change. And I was really struck a few weeks ago when they had the sort of the National Walk to School Day, and one of my daughter's schools, Piney Branch, next door here, was picked as sort of the flagship school, and they had a parade, and they were all asked to make banners and little things to hold in their hands, about pedestrian safety, and it was supposed to be about pedestrian safety and good fitness and a little bit about climate change, and they turned it into an impromptu Obama rally. I went down there and it was like, yay, Obama, and boo, McCain, and vote for Obama, and it was really, it was sort of very encouraging, that they get it. And one of the reasons my kids get it is the minute they heard about Sarah Palin and the polar bears, it was over. I mean, not that there was any chance that they would have voted for Sarah Palin if they were old enough to vote, but, they understood. They tell us all the time, turn the lights off, don't drive the cars so much. And so that sort of brings me back to the question of, this is nuclear-free Takoma Park, but how nuclear-free do we really want the world to be? I think we get it about nuclear weapons. All of us in this room understand the Holocaust that can be unleashed if we were to use nuclear weapons again, anywhere in the world. But do we understand that the other major threat that we face, climate change, has no prayer of being addressed as long as we continue to perpetuate the use and expansion of nuclear power? That we can't do climate change if we continue to use nuclear energy because of the cost, because of the time it takes, and most importantly, because of the risks that are involved. And do we understand the risks, the connection of the danger of nuclear weapons to the danger of nuclear power? That's the key thing. Do we recognize that every time we try to market nuclear energy to other countries, as happened basically in Iran, they were entitled to do this as a signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. We're marketing it to Saudi Arabia, which Ed Markey described as the Saudi Arabia of solar. It's true. I mean, we're sending nuclear energy to deserts where it's sunny all the time. It makes no sense. And what we're doing, therefore, is setting up the possibility that nuclear materials will be diverted, either officially into nuclear weapons programs, as we wonder about Iran and whether or not they're doing that, or unofficially, covertly, as happens when nuclear materials are diverted or sold on the black market or stolen. And so it's really important to consider that these two things are inextricably linked. We split the atom to make an atom bomb, and then we split the atom to turn the lights on. It's a sort of level of insanity, but it's the same process. And it was obviously technically feasible, but it had no political or moral or even fiscal rationality to do it. And we're reaping, what you could call the rewards of that today. It was a huge mistake. Of course, we know about plutonium. It's a key fissile trigger ingredient of a nuclear bomb. But did you know that every civilian nuclear reactor produces plutonium, enough to make 40 nuclear bombs a year, every reactor? And we have 104 operating reactors in this country alone. And that material could be diverted and used in a dirty bomb. And of course, all these reactors, we have 104 operating reactors and 27 closed ones, they all make a tremendous amount of radioactive waste, which is radioactive for millennia. And this is all, the first teaspoonful that was ever generated of nuclear waste is sitting at every single one of those operating reactors and at the closed ones. It's never gone anywhere, which makes those reactors basically sitting bomb, dirty bombs in our backyard, sitting duck targets for terrorists. And, you think about that. We've got two of those about 52 miles from here on the Chesapeake Bay, the Calvert Cliffs nuclear power plants. Two of these, and a third one threatened now. There's talk about building a third one. So we could have 3 dirty bombs in our backyard, 50-plus miles from Washington, D.C. When you go to the airport, you're told to throw away your shampoo. But do you think that Homeland Security has ever said anything about the 2 dirty bombs that are sitting in our backyard 50 miles from the nation's capital? Nothing. So that, I think, is something one should think about. The other link between nuclear power and nuclear weapons is where it all begins. And it's interesting that today is International Human Rights Day, because where nuclear power and nuclear weapons begin is with uranium mining. And the people that have to mine this uranium in this country, in Canada, and around the world are almost always disenfranchised, indigenous people. In this country, it's mostly been done by the Navajo in New Mexico, but also by other tribes. And what's happened is that those people have suffered incredible health consequences. They mined that uranium to make all those nuclear bombs, and they continued to mine it so we could turn our lights on with nuclear power. And the degradation of their environment, the destruction of their traditional ways of life, the contamination of the air with radioactive dust and with the waters affected everybody, not just the miners, the wives who washed their mine worker husbands' clothes at home, the children and so on. It passes through generations. So I want you to think about the immorality of ever saying, oh, we should have more nuclear energy, without thinking about who you're going to ask to die for that. And John Trudell is a very famous troubadour, poet, Native American, has a great line about this, that when you ask about the nuclear war, will it ever come, It's already happened. That dead Navajo miner is a victim of our nuclear wars. And so that's the connection, and it's important not to forget it. So how nuclear-free really are we with Calvert Cliffs in our backyard? Well, you can find out in Takoma Park if you look at your electricity bill. It tells you the percentage of the sources of your electricity. And if you look, 34% of it comes from nuclear power, and probably more of it if we build that third reactor. 54% of it still comes from coal. But you can change that. We don't have to agree to that. We can all choose 100% wind. That's what we've done at our house, and I encourage everybody. Wouldn't it be great if everybody in Takoma Park said, no, I'm going to buy 100% wind power? We'd be nuclear power free. So we could achieve that. You know, it is in our hands. We could, of course, use a lot less electricity. As my children tell me, you know, turn the lights off, but you're not using them. And that way reduce the need for a third nuclear power plant out at Calvert Cliffs. Because we don't want to accumulate more waste when, as Jay mentioned, it's not gone anywhere. You know, the one place that's been meant, you probably think, well, wait a minute, what about Yucca Mountain, Nevada? Isn't it supposed to go there? You know, we're still battling over that geologically disastrous site on Native American land. And incoming President-elect Obama has said that he will cancel Yucca Mountain, but that doesn't mean he won't come up with a worse idea. In fact, he's articulated the possibility of interim, you know, storage sites, temporary interim storage sites, and take that word temporary loosely. And of course, where do you think the first places they're going to look when you go out west? It's going to be on Indian land. So we need to be vigilant about that. And that's why when you look in your program and you look at the ordinance that we have here, it's different from when it was when Reuben Snipper and Jay Levy first got it done. You know, there's an extra clause in there, and it's about radioactive waste transportation. And the reason that that's there is because of the possibility of it moving, if not to Yucca Mountain, somewhere, someday. And if it does move, it's going to go through Tacoma Station on those CSX lines, which brings me back to our children, for whom we do all this. Because I'm sure if you have children, at some point you stood on that platform with them and a freight train has come through that station. And I'm sure your kids marveled at it because they love these things. You know, they're sort of fascinating. They go on forever. They're terribly loud. But imagine if that freight train was carrying radioactive waste. First of all, what that means is if you're standing on that platform and that freight train stops and your kids are there, they're going to get dosed. It's going to be like getting an X-ray. I think it's one every half hour, right, Kevin? Something like that. 1 per hour, 1 X-ray per hour, which you would not inflict on your kids voluntarily, but there is absolutely nothing you can do about it if you're standing there. You know, and when you're a parent, you would die to protect your children, but you can't do anything. And if there was an accident and the radioactive waste got out of that cask, which could happen, then we're looking at a major catastrophe for this entire area. I expect you can remember the Baltimore tunnel fire from a few years back. If there had been a train in that tunnel carrying radioactive waste, those casks would have been breached and that radioactivity would have gotten out, and that would have been the end of Baltimore. I hate to be this gloomy, but that's the reality. You know, that's what we're looking at. So we really have to pay attention to what might happen to the waste and not allow it to go through our station. So how can we make Takoma Park more nuclear free? As I said, we can buy wind power, we can use less electricity. You can also join us in our efforts to stop the third reactor at Calvert Cliffs. There's a petition out there on one of the tables. You know, there are several organizations in this community who are working hard to stop that. So by all means, see us afterwards if you'd like to get active. You know, this is a community of activists. So I know you've probably tapped out on 100 issues, but here's one more. I urge you to take it on because it's really important. Because we have, you know, 2 major threats, basically, that our children shouldn't inherit from us. And it's up to us to deal with them, because otherwise they will inherit it. And one is the danger of nuclear weapons, whether they're used accidentally or deliberately. And the other is climate change, which is right now deliberate, although it's not accidental, but need not be. And we can stop both of those. And to do that, we must recognize that nuclear power and nuclear weapons go hand in glove, and that if we are really serious about a nuclear-free Takoma Park or a nuclear-free world, it's a nuclear-free world, not a nuclear weapons-free world. And that's what we all have to work for. So thank you so much for coming. I'm going to introduce a wonderful performer who many of you probably know. She's a long-time resident of Takoma Park, and her name is Doris Justice. After Doris is done, I encourage you to talk to us, to take literature from the table, and to enjoy from Summer Delights some nuclear-free chocolate ice cream. Thank you.
should it be? Oh, I guess that's right. How's that sound? Picking up my voice and my guitar? Okay. Well, I've been very pleased and honored to participate in the past and tonight, and whenever you have celebrated this wonderful, well, let's see, do we say it's wonderful? I mean, a necessary thing that Takoma Park, the law that they put into effect 25 years ago. And I will sing a song in a bit that's a little more sobering, but for the moment, if I may, I'll lighten it just slightly with a song that I wrote because it's called Coming Home, and it's about a time some years ago when I taught school and lived on Smith Island out in the Chesapeake Bay, and talk about a place that's very much affected by the environment, but it was a fantastic experience. I'm coming home, I'm coming home, for the first time I feel like I am coming home. There's pleasure in the knowing and peace in the feeling when all things in your mind seem to be one. And there's pleasure in the knowing someone else will keep things going, and when I'm gone there'll be kind thoughts behind. I'm coming home, I'm coming home, for the first time I feel like I am coming home. On a cloudy or a clear day, if the tide is high, so am I. If the tide is low or me, I know I'm fine. For no matter how life's treating me, I'm free to go on singing, and there's a force in me that won't hold back. I'm coming home, I'm coming home, for the first time I feel like I am coming home. And I see the island waiting, my heart goes out there flying. This boat will take me back where I belong. And the joy that I am feeling, I hope you can believe me when I tell you this is all the home I need. I'm coming home, I'm coming home, for the first time I feel like I am coming home. Well, this next one, very well-known song that Julie Gold wrote back in the 80s, actually. So I call it the anthem of the 80s. It got recorded by Bette Midler, and it became a really big hit during Desert Storm. But it's still out there, and an incredible song called From a Distance. From a distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains white. From a distance, the ocean beats the street, and the eagle takes to flight. And from a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the voice of hope. It's the voice of peace. It's the voice of everyone. And from a distance, we all have enough, and no one is in need. There are no guns, no bombs, no diseases, no hungry mouths to feed. And from a distance, we are instruments marching in a common band, playing songs of hope, playing songs of peace. They're the songs of everyone. God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. From a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. From a distance, we cannot comprehend just what all that war was for. And from a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the hope of hopes. It's the love of loves. It's the heart of everyone. It's the hope of hopes. It's the love of loves. It's the song of everyone. I'm very fortunate to also know Bill Danoff. He lives right in Washington, D.C. And if you don't recognize that name, he co-wrote Country Roads with John Denver. And he was in the Starling Vocal Band and wrote Afternoon Delight. You might remember that, Skyrockets in Flight. He also wrote one of his best songs for children, past, present, and future, called The Potter's Wheel. Show them the way to least destruction. They need to live on the same land. When we are gone and they are power, they need to live on these same hands. What do you tell forever's children when it's their turn to hurt and heal? Whatever spins a grim tornado can also turn a potter's wheel. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in a shape you want it in. Tell with your life the not in bombs where lies the glory, but in what's shattered on the field. The potter's wheel takes love and caring, skill and patience, fast and slow. The works it makes are easy broken once they survive the potter's throw. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in the shape you want it in. Someday some children will be digging in some old long forgotten ground, and they'll find our civilization, or what's left of it to be found. They'll find a message and a promise in the simple potter's bowl. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in the shape you want it in. Earth and water and wind conspire with human hands and love and fire. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in the shape you want it in. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thanks so much to Doris Justice, who has been a long-term supporter and a great folk music icon in the area. And with that, we're going to conclude, and feel free to get out and have more nuclear-free ice cream. And we have some apple cider and some goodies out there for you. And if anyone would like to join the committee, we're still looking for 2 more members. Feel free to talk to me about it. Good night.